Cool. So today I have the pleasure to speak with Scott Taylor, also known as the Data Whisperer, a very active and energetic voice in the data management space. Scott has a background selling enterprise data management solutions for Fortune 100 and 500 organizations and consulting with clients of pretty much all sizes and all different industries to raise the understanding and awareness of the strategic value of proper data ownership and management. Scott recently published a book titled Telling Your Data Story about why foundational data is important for any organization and how to talk about it to the business. I read the book and I personally find it compelling, insightful, and refreshing. So his unique insights and concepts such as the 4 C's of data structure, the 8 A's of data usage are really useful frameworks for practitioners like me to learn how to tell a better story about data or data. So let's get to it. Scott, a big welcome to the Data Project.
Thank you, Loris. What a great introduction. I appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Yeah, so I think possibly the best way to introduce today's conversation is with a story. I remember have this image of hearing the alarm and ignoring it. It was probably 4:30 a.m. I was 12 or 14 years old, and those were the days in between school break. So where I would help my grandpa with his selling business. He had a small he was selling garments, items of clothing, and he would drive every morning, wake up at 4:30, by 5 being in the truck, drive 1 hour, set up shop, and sell what at the time were things that were made in Italy, something that obviously doesn't exist anymore, right? And I remember I was fascinated by how he managed to establish trust with his clients. He had a really trustworthy clientele, possibly less than 100 people that really knew him and knew the quality of the stuff that he was selling. And I was astonished to see how with that simple business, one small size, he could actually keep up and keep track of all those relationships that he had with his suppliers, with the people that were buying. And I imagine now he doesn't work anymore, but I imagine going right in front of him and saying, trying to explain the concept of data management, and he wouldn't understand, right? Because he would say, look, I can tell you how to establish trust. I can tell you how to run a business. I can tell you how to care about relationships. Without data, I never had to manage my data. So for people that have that kind of mindset, why do we need to worry about data management? Why is it a problem in the first place?
Great story, first of all. Really wonderful. And it sort of hits a lot of the concepts that a lot of enterprises have to deal with. But the big difference between your dad's truck and the folks that I'm trying to kind of get to about data management is I really focus at the enterprise level. So it's totally fine if you've got a single person and they have it all in their head and they know these people and those people. They're not, your dad didn't have a lot of data to manage, I would imagine, right? In his head he did, but he had his own personal CRM and SAP right in his brain there and was able to do all of it together. But when you get to the enterprise level, multiple systems, lots of departments, multiple regions, lots of countries, a global organization, that's the sweet spot focus for the audience that I try and reach out to. Because you can think about the lowest level of that enterprise, what kind of makes up an enterprise or not at that sort of bottom tier. And it's really, I don't argue that point. It could be a little gray. But once you start getting things like CRM and ERP and financial services, technology, and marketing tech, then you've got a data mess that's not going to go away unless you focus on it. So in your father's case, sort of linking the two, something that a lot of organizations need to do is make sure that their systems know what their people know. So if you wanted to systematize your papa's business, then you'd have to get it all out of his head and structure it and put it in there and identify it and code it and all the rest of it. Now take that kind of person who handles a bunch of relationships and put them on a team of dozens or hundreds or thousands of people, and now you've got dozens or hundreds of thousands of customers and touch. That's where you got to get the data management right. So hopefully that at least gives you a perspective on kind of the scale of where it starts to really become a problem.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I love it. I love the fact that what in my grandpa's head was executed at the level of the brain, that connectivity between the different systems. And he had that view, he had the holistic view because he was the one running the business. He had done it for 25 years. But when you have, as you said, many people and you have to bring them together so that they have the same understanding of what's going on, then having that data layer unified matters. And so let's dive into that unification and fragmentation. What are the
First of all,
signs?
sorry, I thought it was your father's, your grandfather. All right.
Yeah, it was my grandpa. Yeah, but it's the same.
Get that right.
Yeah. What are the signs that we need to? Hang on, let me get my coffee here. It's small because it's Italian espressos.
Okay.
What are the signs that we need to seriously think about data management, and in particular master data management? And maybe we touch on the differences between the two.
And MDM is just a subset of data management. I focus and came from the master data side. I think master data itself is one of the most tangible outputs of a data management program. Because a lot of what goes on in data management can just be pipes. It can be moving data around. It can be the governance side, which you don't always see, but you might feel. It could be stewardship. But when you have well-structured customer data and trusted content, that's a pretty tangible output. But the way people, again, you start to think of that enterprise level. Do you have lots and lots of systems?
Yeah.
You have multiple brands that are different go-to-markets. That'll always cause a problem. So if you think about, especially consumer packaged goods companies, which is where I grew up in the data space, they have really complicated go-to-markets. They have really processes that, I think are not even close to what some of the other kinds of companies have in terms of logistics and moving products and the frequency of purchase and the amount of touch points. And so there's lots and lots of ways they get their product to the people who use it. And depending on the product, some of it goes straight to a store, some of it goes through a warehouse, some of it has to be chilled and kept refrigerated to then go. So these multiple layers, that just adds the complication and then just continues to increase the disparate data across all these different systems. They lack any kind of common definition. There's no shared standard. And then the problems just start flying all over the place.
I find interesting to take the perspective of the executive, maybe the CEO, right? You are in a room, and your number one goal is to how do I keep everything in sync? How do I make sure that this whole thing acts as one organism, not many different disparate departments? And all I hear is issues, right? And complaints about different people. The marketing guys don't have the data to know their customers better and target their campaigns. Sales has a similar problem. They seem to have different dissonant understandings of what's going on. So there's a lot already on my plate. How do I need to understand the problem to be able to say this is a data management problem? This is all these things that I keep hearing are all connected. We need to focus on the data.
I mean, if you're a CEO and you found all this, you're probably yelling at some people and going, okay, what's the problem here? Why aren't my quarterly reports correct? I'm having lunch tomorrow with the CEO of our biggest customer, and I don't have one number to talk to them about because it's taking you 5 weeks and a bunch of emails to just give me, how much do we sell to these people? That's what I want to know, right? Or how much? But more likely, you've got somebody from the data side, hopefully a CDO, or in many cases, for years and years, the CIO, who comes up and says, look, a lot of this, the reason you had those problems, or the reason we're having all these other issues, is we haven't built a foundation at the data layer to really structure the most important parts of our business, which I would consider the relationships they have and the brands they create to bring value to those relationships. That's what the business is all about. So it's usually brought up to that, and that's the story I'm trying to help executives and data leaders tell.
Yeah.
because that broad view at the CEO level isn't going to want to deal or hear about a lot of these what sound like clerical back office, almost emotional problems. Here's a way to not start. We have really bad data quality and we got to fix it. I'm whining for dramatic effect, but that's what it kind of sounds like. I mean,
Yeah.
data quality, as important as it is, I pick on the word quality as a way to pitch what people are trying to sell. So if you go and sell quality or data quality, it's a really emotional, subjective term that everybody's got a different definition of, that measures don't really have relevance to the C-level business stakeholders. Here's our percentage fill rate of these attributes. Like, what are you bothering me for? What's up with this? And then meanwhile, you're competing for funding, because that's what you're going up
Yeah.
to. You're competing for funding from people in marketing who sure know how to tell a story. Or people from sales who, if they can't tell a story, they don't make quota, they're gone.
Mm-hmm.
So the soft skills you need to articulate that challenge and the opportunities that are being missed, I think there's room for the data space to develop those soft skills, those communication skills, how to pitch. You had Gilbert on another episode. He's great on the analytics side.
Yeah.
Same thing in terms of being able to communicate the value, the strategic value of proper data management. And from my view, separated from analytics to a great extent. Analytics, data science, BI, because that gets all the attention.
Yes, it does. Yes, it does. I felt that on my skin. I kind of stumbled into data science. I'm sure you heard from the story with
Yeah.
Gilbert that I was coming from a completely different field, from quantum physics, in fact. And I thought, well, I know a thing or two about statistics. I can crunch numbers. I can definitely run a bunch of inference-based algorithms. So I have all the things that I need to succeed in my job. And that was far from the truth. And what I realized is that on the doing it, particularly in a small startup environment where things move really, really quickly, and you got to have an MVP by tomorrow, right? It's not a month; it's this week. Can we show something this week? So in that context, when you need that agility, being able to trust something, having like that firm reference point is really helpful, because everything else moves, and so. But I guess that's the perspective of the data practitioner. From the business is more about, as you said, caring about those relationships.
And I'm not a practitioner, so I don't touch this stuff. I
Yeah.
came in the data space from the entirely separate, different angle, which was from the sales side. I worked for large data companies, Nielsen at first, and just sold their data management services. Didn't know anything about data when I got there. I had some experience in market research, which is a form of data, but didn't do any of the research. I just learned how to interpret it and bring a story around it. So I probably did, kind of analytics, data storytelling first, although it was never called that. And I realized I was talking to a lot of IT people who understood technically what we were trying to provide, but didn't know how to explain it to the business side. And I'm a good storyteller. I come from a family of them. I'm, got dramatic arts training. I kind of come from totally soft skills. And it's like, all right, bring me in.
I could do this.
I'll pitch it. And they would like it because they wanted it to happen. And they knew that I could, that just sort of developed that. And, it's a lot of what I write in the book are kind of wars based on, my personal experiences of dozens and hundreds and thousands of times trying to get people convinced of the power of data management. And I even bring up a couple of anecdotes about how it didn't work. I mean, it doesn't, you're not born with this. You gotta make mistakes. You gotta have people go, I have no idea what you're talking about. What are you doing in here? Why are you in my office? And you gotta have a good answer for that.
I remember a story that you tell in the book about this meeting with a bread company. The CEO wanted to sell more bread, and he was there selling MDM, and it just didn't quite work, did it? Like, what did you
back
like?
and puts his arms up. He's like, Scott, I don't know what you're talking about. All I got to do is sell more bread. How does this help me sell more bread? And I didn't have that narrative ready. And I had the IT people with me. And in that case, when the CEO was the head of sales, but what we were trying to do was help the IT folks fix and enrich and structure their customer master. So the person who owns the customer relationships was the head of sales, and they couldn't really tell it right. I couldn't really tell it right. I mean, I'd love to go back to that guy today. It'd be, a stand-up meeting of 4 minutes. I got it nailed, but you got to learn how to do it.
There's no way, right? And so that kind of is what you refer in the book as the 3 V's of storytelling: the vocabulary, the voice, and the vision. And I'm interested about how do you think these 3 come together? And the next question is, what if you're talking to a business that doesn't have a clear vision, that they're still trying to figure it out, right? And if you step in and go like, look, everything is a mess, your data's fragmented, you don't know what to trust, it's, let's start from a vision and go like, okay, we have 2 or 3 different versions of that, we're not quite sure. Is there a way to sell data management to people that are still in the discovery stage of that customer?
You can, take the last part of that question first. You can always go in there and help people with cleansing. People need they need attributes, they need enrichment. That's a really tactical, ad hoc, project-oriented way to sell this kind of stuff. And when I was at a number of these companies, Dun & Bradstreet in particular, that's where a lot of people spent their time. Like, we're going to sell cleansing, we're going to sell, we'll clean up your zip codes. I just thought that was a really dull way to go. They made, they did fine, but they were never going to get above the people they were dealing with, and they were never going to get a strategic relationship if they kept doing that. And what I helped that organization do was really understand the power and value of master data as a practice and master data as a service. MDAS is what I named it. And that helped elevate the positioning. And we were going, it was like, look, a lot of what I put in the book came recently from kind of codifying my experience. Because when I was at D&B, I was dealing with hundreds of people all over the world and a whole big partner network. And I knew I had to scale the stuff I was doing. How do you make it pithy? The 4 C's, the 8 8s, the 3 B, how do you make this stuff memorable so salespeople can see that training and go, okay, I'll pick up those nuggets, right?
Yeah.
The vision part that you talk about, if you're dealing with an enterprise and they don't have a vision, they got bigger trouble than their data problems. So it's, I would suggest it's hard to find an enterprise that doesn't have some form of a vision and direction. If it's a startup, again, I've worked and consulted for some startups who were thinking about, how much should we invest in MDM? It's like, get your stuff done first. All right. You need to build a big, if you don't have any customers, you don't need a customer master, right? If you don't need a product master, you don't need, So there's a point where, and again, I've drawn this line somewhat informally of, okay, the enterprise level.
Yeah.
If you bought SAP, you better have the right data. If you're in multiple countries, you got, 2 instances of Salesforce, you already have a problem. So it's that kind of level.
Oh, well, this stuff resonates because I worked for a pretty short amount of time in a scale up. And so they had lots of customers and many of them were recurring. So sort of they were past the customer discovery phase, but they were still struggling with that fragmentation that you talked about. And so when it comes
the vision part?
No, with the actual data layer fragmentation, having all the systems together, and they were doing ad hoc things.
As soon as their version of your grandpa gets overwhelmed,
you kind of need to think about.
It's like, okay, this Gladys does it every weekend. She fixes the hierarchy. That's an exact quote that a prospect gave me.
Yeah.
What do I help with? Gladys, over the weekend, she reads the trades. She knows who mergers and acquisitions are. She follows. It's like, what? That's going to break.
Yeah. What if she leaves? Yeah.
Yeah. How's Gladys feeling? Okay. So, and in that situation, you're talking to somebody you need to get around because they're protecting whatever kind of fiefdom they've got and that sort of thing. I'm getting more into sort of sales technique. But if that person doesn't understand it and you believe that there's a problem at that company, you got to get the people who understand that there's a problem.
you're touching on a very interesting point, which is perception around these types of initiatives. In initiatives that, particularly MDM, the Master Data Management, which really is focusing on that 10% most valuable data for the organization. There is a feeling, I can imagine people feeling a bit threatened by the idea that they will be removed from their special sort of status. They're recognized as the ones that you go to when you have certain problems, and now you're talking about using their expertise and their domain knowledge to fix the data, because in the end the exercise is not so much about dumping a new technology stack, is about leveraging people that already work close to the data and close to the customers, to pitch in and encode what they know about it with what exists, and find those central core definitions. I'm thinking in particular about a business glossary, but the same concept extends to any data model, right? Do you think that is because we're failing to tell the story and failing to highlight the advantage, of having a trusted data layer, or is there something deeply emotional here that it's hard to get around, and so you at some point you will face the problem? Well, either we hire and promote people that think as a team, or we don't.
Yeah, I'd say yes and yes. So yes, there's still going to be a cultural kind of anchor of people who don't want to change, who think that their power is in what they know in their head or their special report that they can do. And those days are just like waning. So I don't think there's a lot of those folks out there anymore. I don't know, but that's not a modern, progressive, digitally oriented view. If I had to convince them, I would talk about how they can make their knowledge, really codify it for the organization, be the steward of that. Would you rather have your work and your insight touch 5 people or the whole company? And then you start to hopefully build in them this feeling of, okay, I am doing this for, I do it because I know I bring people value. How would you like to bring, 100 times more value to the organization? Here's how you do it. Start putting that. We start focusing on the data part rather than keeping it yourself.
Yeah, when you put it that way, it's it'd be very hard to find people that say, I'm happy with being on call on a Saturday morning or early on a Sunday while I'm sleeping because there's a problem, and only I am the person that can solve it, right?
But you touch upon a piece which I think is important that I focus on in the book, which is to get that upper level support. Because once you get upper level support and the leadership says this is now part of what we're doing for the company, you all of a sudden get a lot of people who get in line and start doing it. If you have to convince everybody every time, all the time, you're never going to have time to actually do the work. So at some point, you got to get to the senior leadership and go, you got to get behind this. I need a sponsor. I need an exec, the CFO is the executive sponsor of or CDO, whatever it is.
Yeah.
Then there's a certain population especially in a large corporation. I've worked in a bunches of them, so I know how kind of like the politics and all that works, who just go, okay, this is what we're doing. Because they were, and a good subset of that group would not have cooperated because they didn't see senior leadership tell them to do it. And they don't believe it's their role or they have the authority to say yes or no. That's a real situation. If you are mid-level in a lot of these corporations, it's like, all right, you told me you want to start doing this. I didn't hear anybody say you want to do it. Sounds like a good idea, but I can't change what I do. So the importance is that upper level, and what you want to tie it to that work is the reason the higher level is going to support you is because the things they want to do are enabled by your data capabilities. And that's the work that the data leadership needs to do to make sure they not just survive, but are properly funded and respected and supported and all those other things that all those other departments get.
Yeah. Yeah, in the end, for many organizations, it's a change exercise, especially those that don't have a data management program. And I would definitely be surprised, but I don't know the numbers. Do you have an intuition for what percentage of senior executives or senior business leaders understand the level of fragmentation of the data layer?
Not really. No. I mean, but if you look at, Gartner's still writing about it, McKinsey's still writing about it. So if you use those as kind of leading indicators, you go, okay, the problem's still there. I don't do much. I don't look for kind of the trends. I look at or where things are going. I wait till somebody says, okay, here's where things are going. And then I'm the one who goes, you ain't getting there without better data. I know that for sure. So I got enough miles on the road to know whatever they come up with next in
They'll need that.
technology is going to need it. So, data warehousing, data lake house, data lake housekeeper, data mesh, whatever the heck it is.
Yeah.
You look and you go, okay, if the data sucks, does that work? No. We got this brand new site. I'm a guy on, the guy in the demos who go, okay, is the value of what you're demoing directly proportional to the quality of the data that's in that demo? Well, yes. Okay. Thank you. No more questions. And, everything demos perfectly because the data's perfect.
Yeah.
But, there's plenty of analogies, but an easy one in this case is, okay, you buy a car, you put the bad gas in it, it's not going to run. So
did you think in that sense it even makes sense to speak about ROI for data management?
Yes, because there are some, especially financially oriented leaders who must see that exercise. So you can't dodge the question. I've never really spent a whole lot of time on formal ROI calculations or putting a model together for a variety of reasons, not the least of which is there are better people doing that and understand the inputs. But whenever I've gone too far, if you get too far and you're an external person, because that was where I was doing, right? What's the payout? What's my ROI of buying Dun & Bradstreet? It gets it, people beat up your assumptions. They've begun to sound kind of ridiculous. But yes, you need some sort of, I assume people have some form of formal business case that says, we need $2 million and we believe it's going to enable or pay back this amount. Now, where do you go find that? So look for the things that it enables. Don't focus too much on that data management for data management's sake. We cleaned 1,000 records. It's 2 cents a record a month per. It's like, who cares, right? And then you add it all up, and it's 1 billion nickels and dimes and pennies that nobody can really put their finger on. Flip that around and go, okay, our leadership has gone through the exercise to realize we have to go from selling our tangible widgets to licensing the value of our widgets in a subscription as a service model. We make industrial widgets and the power there. So we're not going to sell our engines and our power generating widgets. We're going to license it. And we'll charge people by the widget hour, and we'll have anticipatory service levels, and we'll be able to deliver. And that's a huge strategic initiative. That's extremely transformative for some kinds of organizations. It's not getting off the ground if you don't have the structured data to back it up. Just not going to. You can do it in a petri dish, you can do it in a perfect concept, but you cannot do it at scale.
Yeah.
Data leaders got to listen for that stuff. Are we doing that? Are we thinking about that? That's one of many, 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 many kinds of examples, but that's just I think, fairly specific example of a digital transformation exercise that a company might go through.
Yeah. There are the 3 stages that you mentioned of digital transformation. You start from awareness, then you gotta, fix the problem. Stage 2, having that unified data layer. Stage 3 is expanding a trust network, and that kind of, this is something that pops in mind when you're speaking about licensing. Like going beyond just the transaction of I'm selling you something and I get money in return for ownership, right? And you change that mentality around. It's a little bit of what Doug Lennon in Infonomics is talking about as well. Like he speaks about the non-rivalry aspect of information and the fact that it's non-depleting, that you can keep selling this. And once you've established that truth and that's valuable and it's trusted, and you have systems to keep monitoring the level of trust and the level of quality, then you can expand. You can think about more bold initiatives and identify new revenue streams really for the organization, because that's what it is.
Potentially, I think the revenue stream part is a little far out of reach for most organizations, but yes, but you can generate revenue off of what the data allows you to do. So if, that service level or the as a service, in that as a service example, you're not selling any data, but if you don't have all this data, you cannot monetize that as a service capability.
Mm-hmm.
And that as a service capability is a tremendous amount of data. And I'm talking, a good example is GE and Caterpillar and, these big industrial equipment manufacturers are looking at ways to do that, or are far along there, where they don't sell a jet engine, or they sell the, torque per hour, or license that engine power, and build a digital twin so they can anticipate service level and all that kind of stuff. It's all really, really cool stuff. And so I hear that. So that's where I sit. I sit in the back of the room. I go to Gartner. I hear him talking about digital twins, and I go, okay, where's the data management story in this? It's there. There's another reason people are going to need it. So I talk about how data management, master data, that whole part of the space is macro trend agnostic. Doesn't matter what big trend's going on. If it has technology in it, technology, hardware, software, data, if you have data, you need data management. Checkmate. Yeah. So it's a direct line for me. And I think, I hope that I help people see that connection more clearly and can act on it more deliberately, instead of fussing around with a whole bunch of angles that may not really work.
Yeah, let's dive a little bit into the part of, how, imagine I am a part of a big enterprise and I am senior enough to know what the problems really are. I know the bottlenecks. I don't have enough authority though to make directly any change. I can't just walk in the CEO office and explain, we need to fix the data layer and it should be P1 and not P5, priority 1. What kind of suggestion you give to a person like this? Who should they talk to? Who should they seek? And what is, the process of getting that story, that momentum built up?
If they're totally clueless, they should buy my book. I got a lot of tips in there. But it's around, if you're leaning on that kind of idea of the 3 V's. Okay, what's the vocabulary of your organization? Customers, relationships, and brands. Again, the 2 big sort of uber domains that I refer to a lot. Look for where your company's trying to go. Keep going back to that. What's the vision of your company? That 3rd V. Our vision is to be the premier partner of choice for our customers and partners. That's what our vision is. It's in our annual report. Okay, how's the data? You know what? The data on our partners sucks. The data on our customers is a mess. We've got 152 duplicates. We've got bad hierarchies. Our 2nd biggest category is other. Just, those kinds of things bubble up very quickly. And you can show how those are destroying opportunities.
Mm-hmm.
But you've got to package it in a way that's palatable, that it really captures their imagination and shows some version. It all boils back to some version of garbage in, garbage out. Sorry to say, but it's like every one of these goes back to that. Unfortunately, GIGO doesn't work as a pitch. Nobody goes, oh, perfect.
I got it.
Let me go give you, here's $10 million. Go fix that. But it does, if you think, and again, I do a lot of boiling down. I just reduce stuff. I try and see, how few words can I use? How simply can I explain it? So you've got to boil that stuff down into something that's kind of bite-sized and is memorable, and you can tell somebody almost in passing, and you get fluent in it. So there's a lot of techniques, and it's, a long-winded answer here about, what do these people do? But they got to get executive support. They got to be able to put the business case together. There's surely things that their data problems are not, that they're reverberating downstream that it's got to get fixed. What usually happens though is there's some kind of emergency, as usual. You know, same thing with people, right? You get a heart attack, all of a sudden you're exercising all the time instead of spending the last 30 years not exercising. So
Quit smoking.
Yeah, quit smoking, whatever. A big event could be, all right, we're putting in a single ERP system. We're putting in, consolidating CRMs. We just acquired a company our size and doubling the business. A big shock that a lot of people went through over the last year with the pandemic was, we got to take e-commerce seriously.
Yeah.
And we don't have the product data. We have manufacturing product data that doesn't mean anything to a consumer or a customer because we never put it in front of anybody. It wasn't produced. That data isn't there to be put in front of a consumer touring a website trying to figure out what product to buy. So they had to get this product data, product catalogs, customer, and you didn't have a choice. So a lot of folks, and the number of the analysts have confirmed this, and people kind of around the industry that I've talked to have said, the inquiries, the discussion, the focus on MDM and master data really peaked last year due to the pandemic. I talked to a lot of the MDM providers that feel the same way. It's like, yeah, we're getting all these, because people got to get serious. This is, and they're lucky I'm not still in a business in that way, because I'd be like, we've been banging on your door for the last 5 years.
Now you listen.
Your price just went up. But
yeah,
anyway, it's just so you need that kind of, sometimes that shocks the system.
Yeah, that sense of urgency that goes up, through the roof.
Because on the flip side, you might have a CEO who goes, you know what, we're doing fine. I get my reports. We're a profitable company.
Yeah.
I report to Wall Street. I don't know what your problem. What are you saying?
It's not a problem. Yeah.
So that's hard to break through that kind of situation, unless you build a much bigger narrative and a much bigger story to say, by the time it gets to you, it looks okay, but let me tell you what's going on behind the scenes here.
Yeah, there's a term for that, right? CEO. What's it called? CEO pathology? No, CEO. Something with CEO and something bad. It's the fact that the higher up you are in the hierarchy of the company, the less you actually know what's going on. So everything looks like
at that level. I mean, I think it's kind of a popular way to sort of pick on upper level folks, but I've dealt with a lot of CEOs who are really wonderful and brilliant and visionary people. And even running a business myself for a while at Nielsen, my father told me, once you get to $10 million in revenue, you're not going to know everything going on. You're just not. And it was like at the nickel, I stopped knowing what was going on. I grew the business from less than 2 million to over 25 million. And, when I hit that point, it was like, and so I was sort of emotionally prepared for it, I guess. But they do, good leaders know where they want to go. And if you can show what you can provide will help them get there, they're really interested. And frankly, they're more interested in that than you coming up to them and saying, here's a different place we could go.
Yeah.
They want ideas, innovation, all that's wonderful. But if you're in the data management space, look at how you enable what your company already wants to do, rather than trying to figure out a brand new service you can. I'm not trying to discourage people, but there's plenty of work to be done that will really help the organization in really basic ways. And you'll be a hero pretty quickly.
Absolutely. Sorry about that. What were we saying? We're saying that, in terms of resources for CEOs.
Yeah.
What that there's a problem. What's the first step? Is it bringing in a consultant, or like the reason? Like, is there a place that you can go that is independent? It doesn't try to push a technology. It doesn't try to push a methodology. Is super partisan in a way. It speaks about and talks about frameworks to think about these problems and what and offers a network for people to know what has worked and what hasn't. Because I'm guessing that a lot of organizations are trying to get that data.
The analyst groups provide that to a great extent at almost every level, from going to a conference and reading some white papers to consulting for you and so on. So I think they're really good at that. I think most people that I've spoken to already have the passion. I learned it from them. I learned it from them going, if we could really do this, this is how it's gonna fix it. Very few of these data leaders that I talk to are at a loss for what to do. They are trying to get funding for the things that they know their organization absolutely needs. We got duplicates like crazy. We got, 28 SAP systems, means 28 places we create customer. We got bad orders coming out. I got hierarchies that don't work. I got taxonomies that are a mess. I got geographies that are screwed up, all that kind of stuff. They know it, and they know where it can be put into play. They often do. So it's rare for me to find, a senior data leader who's just, I don't know what to do. So that's where I suggest, all right, what's missing in your toolkit is the ability to explain why this is important to the organization in business language.
Mm-hmm.
So get better at that.
Yeah.
So you can pitch it.
Yeah.
But that underlying passion, that frustration, that's what's motivated me my whole career, because it is that combination of that. You'll get the people, and I would tell my Salesforce when I was running a Salesforce at sales group at Nielsen, and even at the folks I dealt with at D&B. It's like, you're going to find that person. You're going to find those people. They're there. They're like literally at every organization. They're in the weeds, or they're behind, and talk to them and find out about them. And I did some work for WPP, which is the world's largest ad organization. I was consulting there on retainer for a year and a half, looking for master data, reference data, taxonomy types of opportunities to actually license that data, and looking to productize their data in a way that a company like that could, because Nielsen does it, D&B, and they have Kantar at the time, which is a large data organization, so they understand market research and all the rest of it. But there ended up being kind of a secondary plot in my journey, which was finding these folks who just totally got it. And they had this wonderful combination of incredible passion and almost debilitating frustration.
Yeah.
Because they were like, yeah, this is so great, and we can't get it. Nobody get. I would come. It was almost like therapy. It's like, you get it. And I kept a list of them. I mean, it wasn't big enough for a database, but it's like, all right, here are the 20, 30, 50 people who in this organization get it. And that's part of what I would use to kind of sell it up the line and go, look, you have all these disparate people. They're all across the organization. They all understand this really core value of the most important data you have and how it works in everything they do. We need to help them.
So was your role kind of the one of aligning the voice between this different perspectives into one coherent story that you can pitch?
Yeah, I never got to that point. It could have been. I was an external consultant, and I had a ball. I was working with this group called the Data Alliance, whose central role was to kind of be a clearinghouse. And for the agencies, it's really, really complicated company. And they like this idea of, okay, we could productize more data. We could look for things. And so I tried to help them understand sort of the domains that were important. So for instance, I said, every piece of work you do in this organization, they do more marketing than any other organization, okay? They buy a third of the media on earth. That's an unimaginable number. They had dozens of market research firms. They were buying a company a week, an agency, some form of research company or whatever. Now it's split up since then, but that was the nature of the beast at that point. And I looked across and went, all right, every single company you have, every piece of work you do includes the notion of a brand. And you have no common definition of brand. You have no common structure for brand. Any brand comes to you and says, I'm working with 100 of your operating companies, and that's not an unusual number. I want to know everything you know about me. They couldn't get it done. I mean, it would take forever. It was a hugely laborious process because By design, that company was separated. But this one idea, this one notion, this one concept, if you could put that across the whole, and that's where I told them to start. I said, start with brand. Start there, and you'll start to pull together all this insight that you've got.
Yeah.
I got to the CIO of the whole organization globally, and he goes, that's a transformational idea. I'm like, great day, great meeting.
Yeah.
No funding, I had no authority, they didn't have any place to put it. They ended up splitting the company up. But for me, it's, did I not sell that idea? No, I sold the idea. I knew, for me, it was kind of validation along my way to go, okay, I know how to find these things. I know how to articulate them.
Mm-hmm.
And I know how to get through to lots of different parts of the organization. Let me kind of compile that in a more extensible, relatable way and put it in a book. So that's where I got to that point.
That's brilliant. I think
I came up with the 4 C's, the 4 C's of master data, which I wish I had thought of 20 years before. Code, company, category, country. I had to explain that. I was explaining master data, and I was like, okay, every record you have has a unique number. It's got a hierarchy. It's got a taxonomy, so you know what kind of thing it is. It's got some sort of geography. Yeah, so those are 4 C's: code, company, category, and just because they all start with C, call it country.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay. Just start there. Just get that right.
Yeah. Yeah, it's also important to focus on this stuff, right? Because there's so much data about so many things. Where do you even start? And so
and that's where I believe my part. That's where I kind of live in the data spectrum. Most of the focus is where on data ends up. I'm over where data starts.
Yeah, that stuff resonates a lot with me. I feel like there is a huge opportunity. In the book, you mentioned about briefly the transformative potential of data management, and you compare it briefly with, product, with marketing, with sales.
Yeah,
it really is incredible. I mean, if you think about, I'm trying to picture, actually, build a visual image of data management, and I found that talk on the new neural network, and during the marathon, that was interesting. Maybe too complicated for me. I like to think about a wheel and the hub and the spoke model, as opposed to a chain, an open sequence of things that start from the raw ingredients and end up with the customer. I guess the wheel, it's also interesting because there's another book that I've been reading recently that's been around for a while, the Flywheel, that kind of it talks about the idea of thinking about a business as different areas that are connected, and when you improve one, the following improves, and then the one that follows improves until you close the circle and get that spin, that churn, that flywheel to churn. And both are images of something that rotates. and the center, the center, if you think about the hub, is the hub the master data? Do you think
it can be? I was drawing on the bottom. It's a graphic choice of mine. Because I got kind of cynical of watching people come in and pitch, and they always put themselves in the middle, right? We're in the middle, and we're in the middle. It's like, not always.
Yeah.
My recommendation just graphically is like, put it on the bottom, put it on the side, put it, because it's a foundation for all the silos. Mm-hmm. You've got all these verticals, it's the horizontal. Even a really simple idea like a table, you have lots of columns, it's the row. It's about rows and columns. Master data is the row. Analytics are the columns.
Yeah.
The columns, provide insight on what the row is. The row is what the columns are about. So anybody who's worked anywhere in data and had 2 spreadsheets and tried to bang them together, really easy to add columns, tough to align the rows.
Yeah.
Take that concept and blow it out across your, And I get people push back like, well, it's not about rows and columns. It's about graph. It's like, I'm just, go explain a graph to a CEO and see how far you get. Show them one of those lovely chrysanthemum bursts and see if they, they'll say, I know I'm looking at something, but I don't know what it is. What are you showing me on here?
What does
Well,
it
this
mean?
all connects with, there's got easier ways to explain it. You get it too much into the how,
Mhm.
you got to focus on the why. Got to focus on the why part when you're trying to get business leadership, I believe.
Yeah, and I think if you're not an analyst, like if you don't actually work with data directly, sometimes it's hard to visualize this concept of meshing together different data sets. But it's what we do all the time. It's this, in databases we call it joins,
Mm-hmm.
but right, it's what. But why do we join? Why do we join in the first place? And man, not everybody has that clear. And I think that
Yeah, because
it's
you're
a
adding more columns to the rows. That's what I say, right? So,
exactly.
you're adding
That's why
more.
it's called a relational database, right? And we go back to the relational centricity that you talk about, and the fact that in the end it's all about caring about those relationships. I see that relationship as kind of a double. It's a coin with two sides.
Yeah, nice. Yeah, okay. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a relationship at the human level, but it's also a relationship because you gotta relate those rows. You gotta link them up. Otherwise, you're
Yeah.
not gonna get the full picture.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's very interesting. Matt,
Columns
what
are
was
problems, rows are solutions. That's the way I look at it.
what was the hard part of writing the book?
Writing it, really, it was just a chore.
Yeah.
So I'm a decent writer. I can get stuff out. I've written my whole life, but it's not my favorite form of expression. And it was work. It was like every day. Once you commit to it, every day you are either writing the book or you are not writing the book. It's like that kind of cloud or just kind of thing. It's okay, I'm not going to do this today, so I'm not doing it. It's not like I'm doing something else. Mostly what I'm doing is not writing the book. So it was just, and I checking word counts, and I mean, I knew I wasn't going to write a 700-page book or a 100,000-word book. It's like if you're going to write a book about telling pithy, quick stories, it better not be too thick. So it's got to get to the point. And so it was that. It was just kind of drudging through that, and it was, reading your own stuff over and over again, getting dizzy on it, and that question of, okay, do I have something yet? Do I? So for me, it was important to work with an established publisher, great guy, Steve Hoberman. He runs Technics Publications. They publish a lot of data management and analytics books, so he's known. And for me, it was okay, that validation of, I send it to him, and the scariest part of the whole process was waiting for him to respond. When I first sent the draft, even though I'd gone through it, I'd had input. I was like, but, do we have something or not?
Yeah.
I know I got a lot of stories. I know I got a bunch of blogs. I know I got some, cute, but do I have a book?
I think you do.
Right.
I think you do. Yeah, you did a really good job.
Yeah, so it seems to be that people are enjoying it, which is just a thrill. So it's worth the effort for sure. But there's some people who are, I've got connections to who are just like constantly. It's like, okay, I'm on my next one. I'm on my next one. It's like, I'm not like thinking about my next one yet. And some people are pure writers. They just write. That's how they express themselves. Again, I think I can do it. I can do it well, but I don't see that as my default form of communication.
What's your default, and how did you?
Talking. In case you haven't noticed, just I can talk and scream out. So, yeah.
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 Did you adapt well to?
So.
Did you adapt well to this digital form of communication? How did you find that?
Yeah, it was fun. I'm still learning. I mean, I'm really working on it. So I did a lot of events, physical events, all that shut down. I'd done some webinars, but I realized, okay, I got to get much better at this. And it's not a new medium. There's plenty of ways to learn.
Oh, yeah.
I watched newscasting. I watched news shows with a different eye after. It was like, oh, okay, how's that person set up? They look pretty good. What's their frame? How close should I be? How far should I, that kind of stuff. And so I tried to, I've learned a whole bunch of kind of what would otherwise be just kind of television technique, because that's basically what it is. And then I've so I got that down, but then I realized all these platforms, what ends up happening is you lose a lot of the dramatic impact no matter what.
Mm.
But most platforms emphasize the visual rather than the speaker. And the reverse is true when you're in a live event. So I don't want to lose that. So I found some software. I was on a search for, okay, how do I make my face bigger and the slide smaller and do it in a way that I can do it across all these platforms, because you can't depend on the moderator to figure it out or whatever. And I just recently found some software that did it. It was like super simple.
Nice.
And it looks great. So for me, that was a big step to just sort of change the experience. Can I change the experience some way or another? Mm-hmm. And then, looking at other techniques to do I start to incorporate more video? Because this is absolutely core part of my business now. I'll go back to physical events, but it's great. Talk about scaling.
Yep, exactly.
I can do an event a week, or I can do, I have some days where I'm doing 3 a day.
Well, you're literally in Sydney now and in New York at the same time.
Yeah. This morning I did a sales meeting for people in Canada. Next week I have, I'm working with DAMA, the Data Management Association. They've got 80 chapters around the world, in 80 chapters, and offered them up a webinar. They're always looking for content for their membership, and that's my audience. Those, they're data management professionals.
Yeah, I just want to
roadshow, but it's like, I'm doing Peru and Indiana and Germany on the same day.
With very little carbon footprint. Let me add that.
Yeah.
Right, because you don't need to fly, and possibly without headaches, because of the many different time zones.
I have to pack. Yeah. So it's fabulous. So it doesn't totally replace it, but you got to be, versatile.
You got to be flexible. Yeah. There's an aspect that I think it doesn't get covered too much about your book that it's super valuable. At least it was for me, and is you give a lot of tips for how to structure the pitch and understand the audience, particularly CEOs, and how little time they have, and how intelligent and brilliant these folks typically are, but how little is the attention span because they're so bombarded by so many different priorities. So I found that extremely good, and it's in the. I'm a signal, electrical signal basically engineer. You can call it information engineering, but it all started from there. Mm-hmm. And the bulk of what I studied at uni was the signal to noise ratio. If you want to convey a message, you got to reduce the noise and increase the signal. It's not so much how loud you are; it's about also how loud is the noise. So you can increase the signal, or you can lower the noise and achieve the same kind of signal to noise ratio.
So the physical, literally the physics behind it. Yeah.
Yeah. But what you've done here is the same. A bunch of and I'm gonna really look forward to apply those in my day-to-day, and hopefully I'll do a good job. But for those that are interested in getting the book, where they can get it?
They can get it on Amazon, or they can get it from Technics Publications, Technics Pubs. Mm-hmm. If they go to the publisher and use my code Data Whisper, you get 20% off. So that's for all your listenership out there. But otherwise, it's on Amazon too, and it's through some sort of bizarre AI-based categorization process. Amazon puts your book in multiple categories. So one of the categories I'm in is performing arts.
Well, you are an artist.
I think, I'm out there, I'm dramatic, but I don't know. I think it's because on the cover, I'm on stage, literally. That's the only hypothesis I have. Like, why would they put it in performing art? And I've ranked as high as 192 in performing arts, but I looked at everything above me, and it's all music and dancing and theater. So that makes me the #1 data book in performing arts.
That's a first. Boom.
Yeah. So
how about that?
Yeah. So proof you can make the data do anything, huh? So I'm the #1 data book in performing art.
Cool. And so about Meta Consulting, when should people, what kind of services do you provide, and when should people think about giving you a call?
Yeah, Meta, we're about what it's about. I talking about data. That's my sweet spot. I love it. I'm doing the funnest stuff I ever did in my career, only I'm doing mostly that. So it's really a blast. And right now I work with both the tech brands, kind of the service providers. Like I did a sales meeting this morning for a company that's sells data management services, and trying to give them kind of my high level. Their leadership said, we talk too technically. We don't have the comfort level to talk to senior business leadership. Can you help us with that? And so, yeah, perfect. But I'm also a brand ambassador for a couple of companies where I do content for them on a regular basis. So they sponsor my DAMA tour. They sponsor some of the things I do specifically for them. I do posts sometimes, includes them or not. And we haven't mentioned it, but my puppets are coming back and they're going to be part of that. So,
I'm excited
but then I
about
also
that.
work for the enterprise level. If there's companies out there, if there's data practitioners at enterprises that are having trouble getting funding, I can help them put that story together. So.
And is there going to be a puppet?
Oh, there you go. All right. Moo.
Bravo, Scott. Moo. Yeah, I've got a bunch of those. I've got a horse.
Oh, nice. A nice horse there.
I got this one, which I don't know the name of it, but it looks like somebody that's hard to change his mind, isn't it?
Yeah.
Stubborn.
Is that a monkey or a sheep?
It's a sheep.
The Puppets of Data were a big hit. That just came to me. One of those, CDO, the Chief Dog Officer, the ITB, speaks in buzzwords.
Is there going to be a cat in the next one?
Yeah, there's a cat consultant.
I didn't see that.
From Meow Kinsey. I haven't done it yet. So I'm working on the script.
Looking forward.
And he's going to come in and he's going to confuse the hell out of everybody. So I decided that these data characters, these puppet characters, which I just did for kicks, they caught on. People really, I was overwhelmed with the response, which was just spectacular. I mean, I did not think I was going to get the kind of response I got. I mean, the first week it went out, I had 3 people ask me if they could show it in their presentations.
Wow.
Sure. And one of them was at Gartner. It's yeah, show it.
Whoa, yeah.
And people were saying, this is my life. This is my company. I can't believe how I just came out of that meeting and it's a bunch of puppets talking. So, clearly struck a chord with people. So I decided I have to just continue that momentum. And so these puppets of data are going to go through the data journey and literally make every mistake I can come up with. So the first thing you do when you don't know what to do with data, of course, you hire a big consultant who comes in and he literally looks at a watch, tells them what time it is, and then gives the watch back to them, which is kind of the classic, consultants are. You hire them to tell you what time it is. You ask them what time it is, and they borrow your watch. That's kind of the consultant sort of business model, right? And he'll take them on some kind of wacky journey, and then they're going to try a bunch of stuff. They're going to do some demos. Because, of course, the first thing you got to do, too, after that is we got to have some software companies come in and demos and try and fix the culture part. There's a business glossary thing. So I got all kinds of little bits that I'm putting together. But I anticipate it being a multi-part episode with some guest voices and a whole bunch of characters. And I have epic aspirations. We'll see how far I get.
Absolutely. I can't wait to see that.
The most creative thing I did was the book. This year, I'm putting that kind of... I told myself all last year, you can't do puppets till you finish the book. It's that's it. If you want to do puppets,
you got to finish the book.
My inner monologue. It's no, you can't, Oh, I just want it. No.
Did you lock the puppets in a box?
They're in a little green box over, in the corner. They pop out every once in a while. I did a Christmas thing with them, the 12 days of data management, and I've tried a couple screen tests.
Oh,
but I've definitely got some work cut out for me. But it's so fun.
Yeah. I can tell it's fun watching them. And the thing is, they entertain, but they inform at the same time, which is...
That's the sweet spot, Laura. So if you can get that little sweet spot there, that's where I am. That's my favorite kind of feedback. You were entertaining and we learned something. It's boom. I did my job today.
Yeah.
That's what I'm trying to do.
Amazing. Scott, is LinkedIn the best place to follow you?
Yes. Come to LinkedIn. All my stuff goes up there. My website is still under construction, but that'll end up being the place where everything is. But LinkedIn is where I'm the most active for sure.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Well, I'll make sure to add all those links in the show notes for anyone listening. And thank you so much for being on the podcast. This has been a blast for me. So thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you, Lars. Absolutely.